Hello, this is Flux with Added Darts, and today we're going to do some tips and tricks for the Kunlun. Starting at the front of the blaster, to install the P-car, you just slide it on here, but if you notice the fit is loose, we can actually use some packing tape to tighten that up, and that will make it nice and snug. Next, we're going to show how to swap out the barrel. So this whole assembly right here is actually cosmetic, and it has a locking collar right here. So you undo that, it can actually make that float, and you just unthread the barrel. And as you can see, you can just slide that off. Now keep in mind, this is primarily for the longer barrel. We're gonna install the shorter barrel, so you won't need this cosmetic piece. Let's go ahead and put that in there and tighten that down. Next, we're gonna show you how to do a spring swap. First, take out the magazine. Now up here on the Picatinny rail, you'll notice that there's two screws right here. We actually recommend to leave this one out normally if you intend on doing lots of spring swaps. Up here in the front, we have our Allen key. Let's pull out these two. So it is helpful if you do not cover this back screw with your back sight. Now we work on these two. Now that we have that screw out, we can just separate the blaster. And there's your spring. Now when swapping springs, if you notice that there is a cut side, make sure to install it this way. And make sure the clean side is on the back end. While we have the blaster open, let's go ahead and check out the O-rings and the lubrication. We have two replacement O-rings here. One for the ram and then one for the plunger head. I like to use a small flathead screwdriver for this. Just kind of get under there and just kind of pop that off. Now these O-rings do get stretched out quite a bit, so keep that in mind. Now for lubricating worker blasters, they actually need a thicker grease, so we recommend Super Lube. We'll just put a little bit around the ram here. Now we're just gonna wipe down all the old grease. I usually use something long like the barrel. This shroud actually kind of works. Just kind of work that in there and you can kind of pull that back out. We'll also clean off the plunger head and this whole assembly here. And while we're here, we'll also swap out this O-ring. Let's go ahead and apply some new grease. So for this, I'd like to put some onto the actual plunger head and inside the plunger tube and kind of get a thin coat on the inside of the plunger tube. And we're gonna work the plunger head into the tube. We don't want too much because you don't want it to feel like there's a lot of resistance. And right before we install it back into the main body, go ahead and let's put a little bit of lubrication on these rollers because they will be getting lots of work. Next is a little tricky. Now, if you don't want to touch the greasy part, you can actually kind of leave this in there like that. But essentially you want to kind of fish that down in there and get the spring to rest on the post. And now we should be good. We can go ahead and sandwich it back together and put your screws back in. And now let's talk about magazines. Now the Kunlun comes with this really cool little cosmetic bumper magazine, but you can also use other worker magazines. Here is a worker 10 round. Keep in mind, that is a skinny pusher in there, so you do not need to be primed to insert the magazine. Of course, you have your standard worker Talon and our Added Darts Coda magazine. Now, a little disclaimer about the Coda magazine is that if you choose to go with this, it will kind of wear out your O-ring. So you might have to do a few more replacements on O-rings. And also you can deprime by holding the bolt, pulling the trigger and letting that go forward. And when you're all done, make sure to put your Allen key back because this thing is a lifesaver when you're out in the field. Now you just can't really fit the Nerf sniper part without having a bipod on the front, and we will be offering one in the future, so stay tuned for that. But other than that, this is the tips and tricks for the Kunlun. And of course, if you have any other questions, reach out to our email orders@addeddarts.com. As always, I'm Dr. Flux. I want to thank you for watching. Be safe and happy foam flinging.